And welcome back to Who Would Win. Today's Who Would Win comes to us from both Shadow Marshmallow and Michael Myers. Oddly enough, Michael Myers and Shadow Marshmallow, you suggested who would win in a fight? Jason Voorhees versus the Terminator. Now, I know I've had this suggested at least twice. I was surprised to see that no one else had suggested it. Now, maybe I missed some of the other people who suggested it, but I couldn't right off the hand find the other people who suggested it. So on that route, sorry if anyone else suggested it. I apologize, I missed you. They were the only two I could find who suggested it. I've done Jason enough times I can do it pretty much in my sleep. The Terminator. So right off the bat, we need to establish what version of the Terminator we're using here. I'm using the T850. The reason I'm using the T850 is he's a stronger model than the original T800 that we get in the first Terminator. So he's the model we see within Terminator 2 and 3. As well as Genesis, Salvation, and in Dark Fate, as we'll get later on. Of course, there's other versions that show up in those movies as well, but the Arnold one we see is usually the 850 sans the first film. Now, I do that because you didn't specify which version of the Terminator. Because we're talking about, you know how many Terminators there are right now? There is the T-1000, the T-800, the T-850, which we're using, the T-X. Then you have the proto models that came before them in Salvation. Then you have whatever the hell, Clark Gregg, is that his name? Clark Gregg was in Genesis. Now you get this new one coming out in Dark Fate. So, yeah, there's a lot of different variations on that. But we're using the 850 because that's when you think the Terminator, you think Arnold. So we're using the 850. With the 850, it has all the abilities the original model 800 had, with some upgrades. It uses 2 hydrogen fuel cells, which, if they are damaged, they will erupt in a giant explosion similar to a nuclear device, minus the radiation. Durability-wise, they are strong enough to durable enough to survive laser blasts, because they were upgraded to survive plasma blasts when the rebel resistance or the human resistance in the future got hold of plasma technology to, combat them. They're more durable than the average Terminator, meaning like normal gunfire will not do anything. You'll need some higher caliber weapons to deal it out. The simple blade isn't going to just unless you literally have the strength of gods, or, just strength comparable to it and a powerful enough blade to do it. You're not going to be able to slice an arm off of it or anything along those lines, but you will be able to rip it off with enough strength. Unfortunately, the T800 or 850 pretty much has a database available to it of all known fighting styles and moves if it needs to, and it can analyze the situation and respond correctly to it. It can also reboot itself. It has a lot of abilities that frankly wouldn't matter in the fight. So again, it can keep going, like all the Terminators. It can keep going, and it can keep going and going and going. Take an arm off, it can keep going. Take a leg off, it can keep going. Take an arm and leg off, it can keep going. As long as it's got a way to move or a way to detonate its hydrogen fuel cells, it will keep going. It's a supercomputer in there, so it can analyze the situation and use the best means to combat it. Likewise, the T800, depending on how you're interpreting the match, does usually have a level of weaponry on him. But I mean, if that's all that is, would it be considered cheating to give him some of his weapons? I will give him a very basic set of weapons. I will give him a standard, like a handgun. I will give him the shotgun, and we'll even give him we won't give him a full automatic weapon, but we'll give him a semi-automatic weapon. The reason I don't give him the Gatling gun is because, let's be freaking honest here, he would mow down almost every version of Jason we would have, because Jason can't survive that kind of artillery fire except as Uber Jason. So that just wouldn't be fair for me to go full Gatling gun on him. Or should I say, minigun. Sorry, minigun. Going into Jason, obviously Jason Voorhees nearly drowned and can't kiss the Crystal Lake years ago. His mother went on a rampage, killed people. She got killed. He lived basically as like a sheltered hermit. Now, Jason, depending on which version you're looking at, I go with about 4 primary versions. Excuse me. You have main series Jason, who Jason leads all the way up into Jason X. That is the Jason who essentially was a demon. Well, okay, Jason himself wasn't actually the demon, but there was a curse on the family, and he had a demon in him, and it's complicated. Point being, only the blood of a Voorhees could kill him, because otherwise, anyone who killed him would just, end up getting possessed by the demon, like being driven to consume like his heart and being possessed by Jason. So he could body swap at that point. So in terms of strength and durability, almost every version of Jason is really slow. And this one is no exception. That said, strength-wise, he's still, capable of ripping a person in half if he wants to, crushing a skull, breaking a back, doing all that stuff. I think he actually, I think in one, in part near the end, he even lifted an entire monkey, those round monkey cage bars, domes. He tore it out of the ground with just one arm. And he carries a machete. All these versions generally carry a machete. Then you have the Jason, rebooted Jason, who is human. That one is human. He's also the only one who actually moves with any legitimate speed. Still massively powerful. Usually carries a machete, but also carries a hatchet, crossbow, hunting knife. He's a bit more cunning because he has a better lay of the land, and he's surviving through tunnels and stuff his whole life. So he's quite capable in his own right. Then you have the zombie Jason that I like to refer to from Freddy vs. Jason, resurrected Jason, essentially. That Jason could take a beating. Again, strong enough to snap a man's back in half while bending the bed he was on, too, throwing a man God knows how many yards away, dozens of yards away, with pole vaulting javelin style. Could survive being stabbed multiple times, eyes gouged, having his fingers sliced, multiple gashes, and yet he got back up afterwards. Not like that's said that none of these Jasons could be defeated. Let me rephrase that statement. That's not to say that any of these Jasons couldn't be defeated, just blown up or anything. It's just they have pretty high regenerative capabilities, generally speaking. Then you get to Uber Jason, who is essentially a cyborg, and it's implied he may have survived re-entry through the new Earth's atmosphere, which is impressive. So if that is in fact what happened, that is impressive. Now, there's no true evidence to suggest. Okay, let me present. There's one. The music and his mask landing is the only evidence you really get. There's nothing to truly indicate that he could survive that. However, it is shown that he could survive automatic fire that blew him apart previously, and an android who physically overpowered him like nothing after he got his upgrades. He was able to tear through the metal hull of the ship without too much problem. Uber Jason was a very menacing individual in terms of just sheer physical abilities. Now, people bring up the point of that Jason does have a comic strip, and he's essentially like zombie Necronomicon Jason. I don't read that version. I'm not familiar with that one. I only go by the movies because that's what I'm familiar with. But at some point, I may do that, but as it stands, I'm only going to be using the movie Jasons for right now. So with that being said, who wins in the fight? Well, let's break it down Jason era by era by era by era, which would mean we're going Uber. So what that means, we're going original series Jason, Uber Jason, oddly enough, then zombie Jason, and then rebooted Jason. So against standard classic Jason, and these two could theoretically exist at the same time. Time travel involved, anything's possible. So, Arnie comes through the portal, he gets his things, he goes he tries to save Sarah Connor, and Sarah Connor's being chased by the Jason, so, he goes, stop right there. And, Jason just doesn't give a crap, so he's coming after Sarah. This guy gets in the way, so he just tries to kill him, but the blade just clings against him. He just shoots him. Jason just, he tries to come at him again, but this time I'll just blast him with a couple of shotgun blasts. Jason goes down, but then gets back up again. It's like, why will you not stay down? And then, he just shoots him again with his automatic weapon. And, again, he's not staying down because the way they killed him in Jason X was blowing him up. So now it's a fist fight between Jason and the Terminator. And I will say this. It's not clear how strong the Terminator actually is. But being as durable as he is, being a robot, having enhanced physical abilities, and being just more durable, Jason might theoretically be stronger, but Arnold's faster, more skilled, knows how to, just destroy and break an arm and all that stuff. So he just snaps one of Jason's arms, snaps the other one, and snaps the leg. And then basically just comes in and he sees that Jason won't stay down, so he just kind of twists the neck off and then just leaves it there and walks away. Here's the thing. I think the Terminator T-850 wins the fight with Jason X Jason because Jason X Jason is just pretty slow, not a fighter really. He's just brute force and power. And it's not certain where Terminator 850's strength really lies, but he's probably strong enough to at least compete with Jason, if not equal or match him, or possibly even surpass him on some level. We just don't know comparatively where these two stand. It's very likely because he's a machine, even though he has built-in limitations, he does surpass Jason in that regard. But being more skilled and just being, ruthless, he could probably take the fight. And the whole fact that the demon couldn't possess him because he's a machine. He's not human, or he's not even a living thing. Also, the 850 has a function where he can basically do what is equivalent of like an electronic adrenaline boost, which boosts all of his physical abilities, which is very useful. Now, by the way, we're not going with a scenario where he could just detonate his hydrogen fuel cells at any point and destroy any one of these four. That's just cheating, because then Terminator doesn't win. It's a tie. So we're talking about in these matches. So against Uber Jason, that's different, because as far as we can tell, the android, even though it's not designed anywhere near the same as he is in the Jason X, it had some comparable strength to the T-850. Maybe not the same level, but comparable strength. If anything, the only thing that we see that might be equal to the T-850 in terms of strength, apart from Uber Jason himself, is the suit that the general got, the leader of the commando squad, or because that enhanced his physicality as well. Now, that's again being said, T-850 is faster and stronger, or is faster, more skilled. Now, right off the bat, none of his firearms are going to do anything against Uber Jason, so it's going to be a matter of getting the blade out of his hand, which I imagine he could disarm him. And now they'll go toe-to-toe, back and forth. And I do think the 850 is probably stronger than the android we see, but just being stronger than the android we see in Jason X doesn't make him that much stronger than the android in Jason X. So whatever damage he could do to Jason is going to be minimal. He might dent the mask or whatever. So they'll go back and forth. And because he's a machine and Uber Jason just got enhancements, this fight's just going to go on and on and on for God knows how long until, until one of them is going to get a lucky hit in. And unfortunately for Terminator, it's probably going to be Jason who gets the lucky hit in. And I do think he probably supersedes him in strength. If nothing else, I think he supersedes him in durability. Because while it's a human skeletal frame for his robot, it's still a human skeletal frame. Meaning it's thin joints, not a lot of mass between them. Best chance of surviving hits either the head or the rib cage. Whereas Jason, you see in Uber Jason, it's sheer muscle, just layered metal and stuff like that. Parts of his body had to be completely redone, including his head, arm, and leg. So I think Uber Jason probably takes that fight. Then you get into the zombie Jason. In zombie Jason and human Jason, it is pretty much the same scenario as, unfortunately, Jason X. With the exception that human Jason does have a speed advantage over the other Jasons. Now, whether or not that's enough to give him a win, that's tough. It definitely gives him a better shot than the other ones. Definitely. Gives him a chance to go for more weak points if he can. Unfortunately, though, I don't think any of the Jasons besides the Uber Jason can win. Zombie Jason's too slow, and frankly, Terminator can just blow his head off. Even if that thing regenerates, that's going to be a win. It's same with human Jason. All he has to do, he's got more fire. He's got legitimate firearms on him, whereas Reboot Jason just has, hunting weapons, machetes, hatchets, blades, basically. So, unfortunately, I gotta go Terminator the majority of the time here. Simply because it more or less relies on the fact that Jason doesn't really have much to put down Terminator, save for maybe physical force to rip a limb off. And even then, you rip a limb off and maybe try to beat him with it. Doesn't really matter. He's got the reflexes because he's a robot, and he can keep going without a limb. So unless you rip both limbs off and then go for his legs, it's very unlikely that any of the Jasons outside of Uber Jason can beat the T-850. And if there were any other version of the Terminator, there's no way in hell any of the Jasons beat him. Because don't get me wrong. You asked me to do the video, I'll still do it. If you want my quick thoughts on if he could beat any of the other ones, which are all upgraded versions further down the line, the T-1000, which is liquid metal that can shapeshift and do whatever the hell he wants and can't be damaged by blunt force trauma, which is all Jason has. No way in hell Jason, even Uber Jason, beats that. The TX, nope. The other two are nope, because those are all upgraded versions of the T850, the T900, the T1000, the TX. It's just upgrading over and over again. So ultimately, yeah, the Terminator wins the majority. So Uber Jason, I think, actually does take the win ultimately against the T850. What do you think in the comments below? Let me know. Thanks for watching, though. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And as always, if you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. I'll be back tomorrow with with a Lantern Course video. And I think I'll do a discussion video tomorrow. Wait and see on that. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time. Later.